Are you looking for the best 2024 NFL Wildcard Weekend DFS advice around? Then get ready for the live Wildcard Weekend IDP Plus DFS podcast. The title bar says Sunday. It is Saturday. It is Wildcard Weekend. It's not super Wildcard Weekend anymore. It's just average Wildcard Weekend, I guess. We are live. I am Joel Wirth. That's my buddy Jameson. Hutchison. Jameson, how you doing, man? You ready for the playoffs?
I am playoffs. What are you talking about? Playoffs?
Playoffs?
I am ready for the playoffs. Looking forward to it. We got some goofy games. We got some stuff. Seems pretty interesting on paper. This usually ends up being like the most exciting weekend of the year.
Yes.
I think there's some different spots. I know a lot of it seems a little bit chalky, but I do think that we could see a big upset this week. So I'm looking forward to it. I'm looking forward to diving into this DFS slate because I think it's pretty interesting too.
Yeah, I mean, it is like big picture. Like the pricing is really tight, so it's it's tough to make a lineup that you feel really good about. So we will get into it. Let's start with the 4:25 game this afternoon. That is the Chargers on the road at Houston. Chargers are a 3-point road favorite in this one. So starting off with a road favorite in the Houston Texans Memorial early Saturday afternoon slot. Yeah. So the slot that they always seem to get for some reason. Total in this one is 41.5. Implied total is 22.25 for the Chargers, 19.25 for Houston. That feels a little high. I don't know if either team is going to hit those numbers, but how are you feeling about this game?
Yeah, it's a guarantee on Wild Card Weekend. It's death, taxes, and Houston getting the Saturday afternoon spot.
Exactly.
So it's been really tough going for Houston. It just seems like this team is just dead in the water. I don't necessarily want to count them out, but like the last month, Joe Mixon has kind of fallen off a cliff. I know he's been getting work, but, like on DraftKings, he ends up $7,200. That's pretty pricey. And then over on FanDuel, he ends up $7,500. So it's a little bit mid-tier for his workload, but Chargers defense has been pretty good. I think this is a spot where like the Chargers defense can kind of tee off on Houston or the lack thereof, especially that offensive line. Nico Collins ends up looking okay, I guess. There's some better wide receiver matchups, even though Nico's been pretty good the rest of the year. But just on the Chargers side, J.K. Dobbins looks enticing on a slate that is kind of thin at running back overall. I mean, you're going to pay up for Henry or Barkley, and if you don't do that, then you're just going to go down to the some of this mid-tier range because there's really not much else. But the one guy I do want to talk about is Ladd McConkey. Over on DraftKings, he ends up $6,800, and then over on FanDuel, he ends up kind of in that mid-tier price range at $7,500. He has been just an absolute ass beater over the last month and a half. I mean, just solid as can be. We got Josh Palmer out, so Quentin Johnson ends up looking really enticing too. Stacking with Herbert. The way that this slate is going to go is if you pay up for a high-end quarterback, you can't smash two stud wide receivers in. You can only smash one. So if you play Herbert, he goes off, he runs a little bit. You can kind of put McConkey in there that's got a similar ceiling and then kind of add another top-tier wide receiver. So I think the Chargers side actually looks really enticing today.
Yeah, for me, this game just kind of encapsulates kind of the difference between like best ball and DFS in that, again, best ball, I think this is going to be kind of a low scoring game. Probably it's the lowest over under the weekend. It'll probably end up being the lowest scoring game. I don't know if either team hits 20. So like in best ball, it's hard to see any of these guys like hitting the optimal lineup. So I kind of fading a lot of them, but in DFS, I think they're all, because of that perceived lack of ceiling, I think they all get at decent prices. And like if you can hit one of these guys and they go off, like you get a couple long touchdowns out of Nico Collins or something like that. They could be part of the optimal lineup at their salaries. So, more interested in DFS in this game than I am in best ball. But I do kind of like Herbert at his price because I think there could be some rushing upside there with him. I think that could be a big part of their running attack. Because J.K. Dobbins is a little hobbled, not 100%. He's been questionable all week. Yeah, Gus Edwards. Like if Gus Edwards gets to 50 yards, it'll take him 20 carries to get there. So just not much I like there. So I could see Herbert getting a lot of run as a runner. So I am interested in that. He's got a nice price. It's $7,600 on FanDuel. And let's see, what's he on DK? 6,000, just above Jordan Love. So I do like him in this game. But I kind of like everyone, but I don't love anyone in this game. Let's say that.
It
I like
it makes
Mixon. I
sense.
like Nico. I'm interested in McConkey. I'm fading Dobbins a bit. I've got way more of him in best ball than I want, but he just came so cheap at the end. So uh, don't love that, but I'll deal with it. So yeah, this is
Yeah.
kind of the least interesting game for DFS of the day or the weekend, just because I just don't think there's gonna be a lot. I could see this game being a 19-17, 17-16 kind of game, something like that, and like neither team gets a 20.
Yeah, it makes sense. I brought up Quentin Johnston earlier. I know a lot of people hate him for the drops and stuff, but he's just coming off a 186-yard game. I know
Yeah.
everybody likes to make fun of him because he has the drops and stuff, but with Josh Palmer out, he's going to end up being like, I know Will Disley's there, but he'll end up being the second man behind Lad McConkey, and I think he's really interesting as far as these like pay down options at wide receiver. You got him. You have guys like Marvin Mims, like those, like that kind of tier, the secondary tier, where I think you're probably going to have to grab a piece and hope that it kind of goes off. And I think there's a way that this game goes where the Chargers kind of route the Texans towards the end. Like it kind of stays close, even though the Chargers are ahead. And then towards the end, like you can see like J.K. Dobbins getting 2 touchdowns or, just like a busted coverage. I know Houston's defense has been pretty solid overall for the majority of the year. But this Texans team just looks like it ran out of gas like the first quarter of the year, and they're just kind of been hobbling ever since. So I'm like, be honest, I'm probably not going to play anything on the Texans side, but I am interested in some of the Chargers stuff. I know it's not as sexy as some of the other games on the slate, but just as overall plays, I do think there's ways for them to get there.
So it sounds like you're taking the Chargers in this game. You like LA?
I do. So
Okay.
it's I just CJ Stroud really has been struggling. And I just think the Chargers defense, we saw them get ran over by the run game, but I just don't think Joe Mixon's going to be able to do it behind that offensive line. Offensive line for the Texans, it's been probably one of the bigger disappointing units of the year. I know last year they had a bunch of injuries, and I thought they'd be a lot better, and then it just never really came to fruition. So I'm going to go with the Chargers here. I think a lot of people are starting to lean that way, even though they're on the road. But yeah, that's kind of where I'm leaning here.
I have no analytical feeling behind this, but I feel like Houston's going to make a stand here. I,
Think
I,
so?
I don't know why. My gut says Houston's going to play up and take this game. I don't know why. I think that maybe that first half they played against Tennessee where they put their starters out there. I think they kind of did what the Packers wanted to try to do last week and just completely failed, and that they kind of got a good feeling about themselves going into this game. So I kind of like Houston in this game. I don't know why. Everything says Chargers, but my gut says Houston. So all right, let's move on to the game of the day. Well, it should be. I kind of think this game's going to be a blowout. That is Pittsburgh visiting Baltimore. Baltimore, my pick to actually go through and win the Super Bowl. 43 and a half is the total in this one. Baltimore, 9.5 point home favorite. So implied total of 26 and a half. Pittsburgh is at 17. Two teams going in opposite directions. Baltimore, since their bye, has outscored their opponents 135-43, I think is the number. They have actually been dominant. Their defense has absolutely turned the corner. They have not scored less than 30 points in any of their 4 games since the bye. Can Pittsburgh keep up in this one?
It's the problem with me is that these are divisional round games that I know a lot of people try to put a lot of merit into, and this game can be close even if both teams suck. And this Ravens team has been really tough to figure out in the playoffs because I feel like they don't show up. They don't have Zay Flowers. Like the game against the Chiefs in the AFC Championship, you can tell that they kind of play tense in the postseason. And that's been that way for the last couple of years. They're going up against Pittsburgh. I know they beat them last week. I know Derrick Henry, especially towards the end, started trucking. But I hope that the Ravens, like I think the Ravens should, I would kind of agree with you that I think the Ravens are the best team in the AFC. Defense over like the last month has really started to kind of clamped down after some mishaps at the beginning of the year. So I'm going to lean with the Ravens here. I think it'll be a little bit closer because these AFC North battles just end up being just kind of these dog fights. But the one guy I'm interested in is Mark Andrews with Zay Flowers out. If they get in any situation where Derrick Henry is not rolling, they're going to have to run through Mark Andrews in this offense. So I'm really interested in him today. I think that's it gets a little goofy because like as far as tight end goes, he's going to be the top guy on the slate, 4,700 over on DraftKings, and then over on FanDuel, he ends up 6,200, which is not terrible, but on these slates, you're basically hoping that your tight end catches a touchdown. That's how you kind of keep up with the rest of the field. So I like him a lot today. I guess on the Steelers side, I'm going to take some shots on Jalen Warren just in case that they become down. I know Najee Harris is still on the field more than Jalen Warren, but I just think that maybe some dump offs, probably more of a DK play than FanDuel. But on that side, that's really about it. I think there's some opportunity to take some shots at Lamar. I don't really know if this is the game for it personally for me, but I totally understand it. There's another game that I actually like with a quarterback kind of in that price range too. But I just, I don't know. I've really struggled with this because on paper you think that the Ravens should just kind of blow this Steelers team out, but it's a divisional game that always scares me, especially in the postseason. We saw that I think it was last year or 2 years ago. The Ravens played the Bengals with Tyler Huntley and had no reason to belong, and they still
That's true.
kind of hung in there until the end. I know I'm rambling here, but I just
No, that's true.
these divisional games, especially in the postseason, I think you throw everything out the window. And I hate to bounce around here, but like Minnesota last week against Detroit, and everybody's freaking out about Minnesota. That happens. Like
Yep.
these teams know they know each other like the back of their hand. So I'm a little worried that this game kind of just ends up an AFC North slugfest.
Here's why I'm thinking Baltimore absolutely trucks Pittsburgh today. In that, like you kind of brought up, Baltimore has had some obvious struggles in the playoffs, right? They've had some complete letdowns. I think this is the game where they just let it out and say we're gonna. Everybody thinks that this is a division game and Pittsburgh's going to keep it close, but we're just going to go out and we're going to absolutely roll these guys. So I think this is going to be we're just going to put it on them for 60 minutes and just we're going to kind of show what we can do in the playoffs. It's just two teams going in completely different directions, right? Pittsburgh has looked absolutely lost in the last month or so, and Baltimore has looked like the best team in football for the last month or so. So I think that matters. I think how you're playing going into the playoffs is very important. I don't think Pittsburgh can hang in this game. Jalen Warren, like you mentioned, is the only part of that offense that I'm even remotely interested in, and that's just for potential garbage time. I think big picture, we should talk about tight ends, and like tight end is super flat. Like it's if you pick a tight end who gets 2 touchdowns, you are probably killing the position. You get like a Jake Ferguson from last year.
Yep.
You're smashing, you're winning. So it's going to be important to kind of figure out if there is a tight end that goes off, you're probably going to need that because like there's no Brock Bowers, there's no Trey McBride, there's no guy you can kind of count on to get you 15 fantasy points at the tight end position. So it can be very touchdown dependent, and if there's one that goes off, you're going to need him in your lineup to be able to win. So
I was going to bring
Andrews up, and I like very likely is a lot too because I think he's getting a lot of those Zay Flowers snaps.
Yeah, I was going to bring that up. I actually like Likely a lot. I don't know about you. I play in a lot of those like one and done playoff contests where you pick a player, and then I think Mark Andrews. I know a lot of people are trying to save for the Super Bowl, but at the same time, you want ceiling. With Zay Flowers out, I mean, Zay Flowers has been the passing offense has ran through him. I mean, he's caught touchdowns and first downs, and every time you look up, he's pointing the after he gets the first down and stuff. I think with him out, like Rashad Bateman gets interesting. I think a lot of people try to go there. I think Isaiah Likely, especially on DraftKings, you want to play double tight end. I think Isaiah Likely, he ends up in the box. Like we saw the ceiling at the beginning of the year. I mean, he went scorched earth week 1, and people were really excited about it. But I think Isaiah Likely is definitely in play today, and I think he's a really fun dart throw. Like you said, tight end's flat. If you get a touchdown out of one of these guys, you are just thankful that it happened. And I'm glad you brought up the Jake Ferguson thing. He had 3 touchdowns. If you didn't have him, you basically I shouldn't say didn't cash, but just didn't get to the top. Like, you're going to have to take some dart throws. You can't, especially on a slate like this where every salary is so top heavy, it's all just stud wide receivers. There's going to be some chances or shots that you have to take. Isaiah Likely, I was going to bring up as a guy I'm really interested in today because he definitely benefits from Zay Flowers being out.
Yeah, and hey, if you guys got questions on your, whatever playoff fantasy tournaments, one and dones, like you said, I think Likely's a great play in the one and dones because, typically in those you want to take high scoring players on teams that are probably going to lose.
Yep.
So I think Zach Ertz is going to be like super chalk in those kind of tournaments. I think likely is a nice contrarian play in those because this is going to be his kind of time to shine without Zay Flowers. And maybe Zay Flowers comes back next week, maybe he doesn't. We'll see, but he's going to get some run this week because with Flowers out, I think he's going to get some extra snaps. So I think likely is a great, and that leaves you Mark Andrews open for further on in the tournament. So I think likely is a great play in the one and dones this week. And you mentioned Rashad Bateman. I think he's an absolute smash play without Zay Flowers in the lineup. 6,100 on FanDuel, and then on DraftKings he is 5,000. Yeah, I mean he's the same price as Amari Cooper, who's done nothing since he went to Buffalo. So he's basically in the same price range as Quentin Johnson. I'm with you. I do like Quentin Johnson this week, but I love Bateman this week. He's basically going to be in all my lineups.
Yeah. Are you playing any George Pickens at all? I know it's
Nope.
getting very thin. But I mean, if Pittsburgh wants any shot, I mean, they need to figure out whatever it is, like give him a chill pill, whatever it takes. Like if they have any shot at playing, I mean, they're not going to run it through Najee. They've got to.
True.
I mean, Russ is going to have to do the deep ball thing. Run, play action, deep ball to the right sideline. If he catches it, great. If he doesn't, so what? I don't get that, but that's above my pay grade to try to figure out. But I don't think George Pickens. I mean, that's just a tournament play only, but I mean, it's looking really dire there for him too. So, one other thing, are you playing the big dog? Are you excited about paying up in some of these lineups? Or
yes, I don't like. I prefer Barkley at that price point, the kind of top of the running back tier price point. I prefer Barkley, and then I'm probably rather go down to Bucky Irving as my second back. I don't know that I want to play both of them. I want to have some Henry, definitely, and I've got quite a bit of them in both of them in best ball. So I'm happy there. I think it's a mortal lock that he scores a touchdown today. But I'm not sure what the upside is there. I'm not sure if he can have, that kind of ceiling like he had in the second half against Cleveland last week, where he had like 130 rushing yards and 2 touchdowns in the second half. I just don't know if that's there. If it turns into a blowout, I think you could see a lot of Justice Hill. So I'm a little nervous about him. I just don't know that Pittsburgh can keep this game close. So that's kind of why I'm kind of less interested in him than I am like someone like Barkley or Bucky Irving.
It makes sense. And plus, like once you pay up for him, it's basically wasting. I shouldn't say wasting. You're not paying up for wide receiver. I mean, once you pay up for him,
right?
Barkley, one of these top end quarterbacks, like everything else gets really thin. I think people always just want to play through the wide receivers. So I think that's about it on this game. Like I think honestly, for me, I think I'd rather play the Chargers stuff against Houston than play this Ravens Steelers game. I'm sure that's a little bit contrarian because I think a lot of people would love to play Lamar. He's obviously got a better ceiling, but me personally, I'm just a little worried that this game just ends up being ugly and kind of AFC North football that everybody's grown to known and love and appreciate. And I don't know about appreciate, but just that boring ass, smash mouth, and not getting the exciting Lamar Jackson that we've gotten throughout the year. I could be wrong. He could throw 4 touchdowns and just totally bury me. That's totally in the realm of possibility.
Yeah, I mean, my problem with Lamar is I'd rather go down to Daniels, who's cheaper, and I think probably has maybe a higher ceiling, just because I think he'll be in a more competitive game. So it's kind of tough to get to Lamar.
Yeah, I agree. So like I said, I think that's it for that game because Sunday slate ends up being pretty exciting.
Yeah, that's where the big over-unders are, as in Sunday and Monday. So let's start with the 1:00 game, and that is Denver at Buffalo. Buffalo's an 8.5-point home favorite in this one. The total is 48. So implied totals of 28.25 for Buffalo, 19.75 for Denver. Jameson, before the show, I was on Twitter a little bit, and I saw people in public saying that they thought Denver could win this game. Is there some sort of, I don't know, some mystery nerve agent or something that's infecting people's brains? Like Denver does not belong in the playoffs. Let's be clear about this. They beat one playoff team all like if you ignore the Week 18 game against Kansas City, they beat one playoff team all season. That was Tampa Bay all the way back in Week 3. I think people are letting the fact that Bo Nix was a really nice fantasy quarterback affect their vision of him. And he's not been a very good real life quarterback. They have no rushing attack. This is a brutal matchup for them. Like this is the worst matchup in the playoffs they could get because they cannot attack where Buffalo is weak. I don't see it. I think this game's going to be a complete blowout. How are you playing it?
Yeah, I think people are getting a little too excited. Once they did the belt to ass to Carson Wentz in Week 18, and Marvin Mims finally broke out. It took all 18 weeks and all that stuff. I think people have that recency bias, and
Yeah.
I mean, I can see Bo Nix getting there in like garbage time just because he's going to run.
Yes.
The one thing I will say is like Buffalo, if you want to get through anywhere, like dump offs to the running backs, they've been brutal against. So like Jaleel McLaughlin's kind of interesting. Probably more of a DK play as far as receptions go. But I mean,
Yep.
I don't see it. Like this game kind of just seems like Josh Allen going Superman. 2 rushing touchdowns. Doing the flexing, doing all that stuff. I agree with you. I think people are a little too excited, a little too overconfident that this Broncos team is actually. They're fine. Like they did better than what people expected. But as far as them having a real shot, I know the defense is decent, but uh, I don't see it personally. But I think I'm more in agreement with you. But people are excited to play him. I mean, I think people are going to fire up Cortland Sutton like it's nothing. People are going to play Bo Nix like not a huge amount, but just enough to kind of open your eyes a little bit. Cortland Sutton, 6,600 over on DraftKings, and then over on FanDuel, he ends up like a 7,100 wide receiver. So I'm not really interested in playing any of the Broncos stuff. I am interested in Jaleel McLaughlin. He seems like he is the cheap running back option that I think will go with like some Josh Allen stuff on the other side.
Sure.
Josh Allen is a smash play, but he ends up being really pricey. And
Yes.
the name of the game all year is like which wide receiver. I'm going to say Khalil Shakir. I feel like that's a cop out answer, but you said earlier, Amari Cooper's not been good. Matt Collins, I mean, I can't play him. I mean, Dalton Kincaid's not been good. So it just ends up being the Josh Allen show. The one guy I'm really interested in is James Cook because I think he can just blow the absolute doors off of this slate with like a 3 touchdown game. So James Cook, and I think you can put him and Allen together. I mean, they can have this sounds stupid in theory, but they can have like 5 rushing touchdowns. James Cook gets 2 of them. Josh Allen gets 2 of them, and then you get like 1 more, so you get 4 touchdowns out of that game. So I think the Bills and the Ravens are in the same spot. Bills have had some like wonky luck, but they've been kind of disappointing in the playoffs. Have ran into some just weird circumstance, and I think they're trying to get that monkey off their back too. So
Yep.
I think the Bills kind of beat the brakes off the Broncos today as well.
Yeah, I will be ladder betting this game way up. Like I'm going to go up to like Buffalo -20 because I think this game is just. I think they're going to absolutely truck Denver. Like it's just like I said, it's a terrible matchup for Denver because the way you attack Buffalo is on the ground. Denver can't do that, and the strength of Denver is their pass defense against top end wide receivers. Buffalo doesn't care about that. They don't care about you getting the ball. Like they're not a Jamar Chase, Justin Jefferson centric offense. They don't care. Like they will take the dump offs. They will take Josh Allen throwing to Khalil Shakir 10 times a game. They completely neutralize Denver's strength. It's just like I said, this is the worst matchup in the playoffs for Denver. So just a brutal spot for them. So yeah, I would be interested in Marvin Mims as a garbage time producer, but he's more expensive than Bateman. He's right there with Jalen McMillan, who I would much rather have in a much better spot for Tampa. So I don't know how you get there. I agree with your take on Bo Nix and that he's cheap, and I could see him getting there with some rushing upside just because he's probably their best option in the running game in this one. Maybe McLaughlin. I could see McLaughlin being a pay down option just because, like, he might get 10 targets in this game. I could see it. So on DK, I could see him being a play. I like Dalton Kincaid a lot in this game as he's probably my favorite tight end play of the week in that he's a little bit of a pay down. And like Denver, because they are so good at their corners, is a little bit of a tight end funnel defense because, like I said, you've got Pat Surtain, you've got these elite corners. So the way that you attack them is assuming you don't have a Brock Bowers that you're going to put Pat Surtain on like the Raiders do, is through your tight end. So I think Kincaid could get quite a few targets. Shakir, the kind of the weak spot of the Denver corners is their slot corner Jaquan McMillan. So I like Shakir as well, and I agree with you. I would play. I'm not afraid to play Cook and Josh Allen together in this game because you get like one dump off touchdown from Allen to Cook and one rushing touchdown from each, and you're probably just smashing the slate. So, uh, yeah, I like all the Buffalo guys, all the Buffalo players who are not wide receivers. Like I think Ray Davis is a nice pay down because I think this game could get so out of hand that they just start running the ball in the second half. So, uh, basically, if you're not a wide receiver from Buffalo, I like you on the slate, and on the Denver side, like I could see Denver just not even getting to 10. So I'm like basically full fading them unless you want to play for some garbage time.
Yeah, I tend to agree with you, and I almost think that is a contrarian take coming from us. Because I mean, I know Twitter's not real
It
life,
does
but I mean,
seem like it. Yeah, I know.
people are like really excited about the Broncos, and it's like, guys, let's
Yeah,
slow your roll. I know, and Bo Nix has been fine. Like I don't know. You see like one big pass to Marvin Mims, and then he does it like twice. It's only taken like a year and a half for that to come to fruition, but like it finally does, and people start getting a little excited. I know defense has been pretty good, but this is also Josh Allen, and this is not the spot for them to lay down, especially because I mean, if everything works out, they're going to play Baltimore next week, and one of these will probably end up going to Kansas City unless something goofy happens there.
right.
But it just, I think, like you said, especially Buffalo, this is a perfect spot for them to just kind of put on. And on a slate like this, where it's so condensed, don't be afraid to add more players from the same team in your lineup. Say,
Yep.
like
Exactly.
Buffalo, if Buffalo scores 40, I mean, you've got everybody, and like all the other games kind of fall to the wayside. You end up getting all the production from the game. So even Ty
Yep.
Johnson, like in like large
Yeah.
field stuff, I mean, just this running back crew, like I said, we'll talk about some guys we really like at the end, like we normally do. And I'll just put it out there. James Cook, for me, is going to be one of the biggest stands I have all weekend.
Yeah, and I think to the people who like Denver in this game and think they can compete, like go look at their schedule. They didn't play
Yeah.
anybody. They played one of the weaker schedules in the league. They lost to the Chargers twice. Like I said, their only win against a playoff team in came back in week 3, and not obviously not including the Kansas City game last week. So it's been like they beat up on some really weak competition. Like one of their probably their most impressive game of the year was that game against Atlanta where they were at home where Kirk Cousins just threw a bunch of interceptions. So like they do not have a playoff resume. They don't like if this was 2019 and there were only 6 teams making the playoffs, they never would have come close to making the playoffs. So yeah, this is bad spot for Denver. I don't get the public sentiment that they're going to win this game. It just makes no sense to me.
Yeah, if you are on Denver today, we will be praying for you. I'll just leave
Good
it at
luck with
that.
that. Yep. All right, let's move on to the most important game in the history of the universe. That is the Green Bay Packers at Philadelphia. I kid, obviously, especially after last week. Philadelphia is a 5-point home favorite in this one. The total is 45.5, so 25.25 implied total for the Eagles, 20.25 for the Green Bay Packers. I know how I feel, Jameson. Do you think my beloved Packers have any chance in this game?
I think they do technically have a chance, and I hate saying this in front of your face, but this is like an all-time. So if you just want to, mute me for a second so you don't get your feelings hurt, this
It's
is
all good.
like
It's all good.
this is honestly the spot of the year for anybody who wants to play Philadelphia Eagles stacks. You have Jalen Hurts coming off a concussion. You're going to get AJ Brown at low ownership. I mean, there is a spot today where these guys can go,
Yep.
Scorched earth. You're going to get them at all like probably under 15% ownership. Like Jalen Hurts has the ceiling that Josh Allen has with the tush pushes. You have AJ Brown who didn't practice a little bit this week, so people are going to be scared to play him. And you got a Packers team that seems like they're reeling. I mean, they were trying to establish the run down like 2 touchdowns with Josh Jacobs. I mean, and I think Josh Jacobs is a fine play this week. I know the Eagles' run defense has been really good, but just as far as volume goes on a slate like this, if he gets touchdown, it seems like he might even get a dump off or two. I mean, to that point, but I love Jalen Hurts today, and I love like stacking him with Devonta Smith and AJ Brown. It gets very thin, very quick. We've talked about that at the beginning of the show, but I think this is just an awesome spot for Philly, and I don't think a lot of people are going to play it. I think people would rather play, the Buccaneers, Commanders stuff. I think they'd rather play Josh Allen, and then you're just going to have Philadelphia, who's got the same ceiling as anybody else on this slate. Just say, "Come pick me, baby, come pick me," and I'm gonna pick him this week. So. I mean, Jalen Hurts, AJ Brown. I think AJ Brown's kind of in a smash. No Jair Alexander, he's out. Like Packers team's kind of rolling or kind of fumbling at the end here. So let's hear how you feel about this game. I heard about it before the show, um, but just give everybody else a glimpse behind the scenes.
Yeah, we talked about earlier. I think how you play, how you're playing coming into the playoffs is very important. And I just absolutely hated the way LaFleur approached that game last week. You either pick a lane. You're either going to rest your guys and you don't care about how that game goes, or you care about playing well going into the playoffs and you're going to go for it. And he tried to middle it and just completely lost in all senses. So yeah, I just hated the way they attacked that game. Hated the way they finished that game. There is a path for them to win. Like, don't get me wrong, they have a chance in this game. I don't think they can get to the Super Bowl. We talked about that. You and I talked about that before the show. Without Christian Watson, I don't think that path is there without him. But they could win this game. Like, they played well, or they played close in Week 1, but they had just a ton of undisciplined mental mistakes. It's like 35 of them. I think Andy Herman, who's a big Packer podcaster, went through the list on Twitter, and there's like 30 just real bad plays that cost them in the game. And again, they could have won. So
They were
there's
also in, like Brazil, weren't they?
yeah, Brazil,
Yeah.
bad field. Yeah. So
Yeah.
yeah, there's certainly a path for them to win this game. Like, both teams want to run the ball. Both teams want to establish, like, so, if Jalen Hurts is rusty, if he comes out slow out of the gates and the Packers can get up by like 10 points after 15, 20 minutes into the game after the first quarter, and then they can just kind of sit on the ball and just, kind of run the clock out and shorten, make it a low possession, 8 possession kind of game. Yeah, then they can win the game, but that's really the only path I see. You talked about stacking Jalen Hurts. Like, back in Week 1, Hurts, Barkley, and Brown all got there. So yeah, don't be afraid to just kind of go nuts on this game. If you're playing the Philly side, I'm not afraid of that. I could see Devonta Smith getting there. Yeah, they had Jair Alexander in that game. They do not have him now. We'll see. I mean, I think they're going to get Evan Williams back this week. It sounds like he's been practicing, but is he 100%? I'm not sure. Javon Bullard is really not playing well. He's really been kind of struggling since he came back from injury. He may have hit the rookie wall. So yeah, I'm really worried about the secondary holding up, assuming Hurts is 100%. Yeah, like I said, there's a path for this game for the Packers to win. I don't think it's a very clear one or a or an obvious one. I do kind of yeah, I like Jacobs. He's going to get volume in this game. The problem is, like, the Packers are best running the ball up the middle, so like straight up the gut, and the Eagles have Jordan Davis and Jalen Carter. That's where you do not want to run against them. They're not really good getting to the edges. And that's where they're going to miss Christian Watson, right? If you want to run the end arounds to Jaden Reed, you've got to have Christian Watson out there blocking. You can't do that with Bo Melton. You saw that in the Chicago game last week. They tried to run an end around with Jaden Reed on 4th down, and like, you had Bo Melton trying to block a guy who's like 6 inches taller than he is, and they ended up losing yardage. So when not having Christian Watson really hurts them. He's the guy who takes, like, he's not super productive, but he's the guy who takes the top off the defense. We saw what Minnesota did 2 weeks ago, right? They went against convention. They're typically a very heavy zone team. They went atypical and played heavy man, and the Packers just could not get receivers open. So if Vic Fangio does that, I think it's going to be a real struggle for them. I do kind of like Jordan Love in the Sunday slates because he's the cheapest quarterback on the Sunday only slates. So I think he could get there on volume. I think like Dontavian Wicks is a nice pay down receiver because he kind of takes over a little bit when Christian Watson is out as their kind of de facto number 1 receiver. So I do like him. I kind of like Jaden Reed in that, like, Reed smashed against Philly in Week 1, had like 110 yards and a touchdown on like 4 catches. So I could see Jaden Reed getting there. I could see Love getting there just on garbage time volume. But yeah, I don't love this game for the Packers side, and I do like this on the Philly side.
Yeah, and just you're playing roulette once again with these wide receivers for the Packers who haven't really had production. Like Dontavian Wicks, people in the middle of the season really were excited once they had some injuries. He ends up kind of fumbling that portion of it, had a lot of drops, just wasn't very good. Romeo Dobbs really interesting, but like, you're probably more excited to play anybody else on earth. And then Jaden Reed, who people thought was breaking out at the beginning of the year, just end up kind of falling off the face of the earth. So it just gets real goofy there. Two more things I just want to talk about real quick. Saquon ends up being the other guy compared to Derrick Henry. He
Yeah,
ends up in a nice spot, but at the same time, Jalen Hurts, if they are anywhere close to the 1 yard line, Hurts is going to get the tush push, and then Dallas Goddard, he's going to be another one of these guys. And I've been on this. I mean, we've been doing this for the entire season now. I've never been a Dallas Goddard guy, but on a slate like this, outside of Mark
yep,
Andrews and maybe Zach Ertz, like anything can happen, and Dallas Goddard will be there. Um, with this Philly stuff, I know I'm kind of hammering it. Kind of getting a little bit of a discount for all these playmakers. Like Jalen Hurts ends up being the fourth cheapest or least expensive, however you want to say it, quarterback. And he's like, $900 cheaper than Josh Allen. And I know Josh Allen has like the insane ceiling, but Jalen Hurts isn't that far off. And then AJ Brown ends up number 5. So behind Mike Evans, Nico Collins, Puka Nakua. And I know those guys probably all set up better, especially with the pass rate and stuff. But AJ Brown's got the same ceiling as those guys. So I just, like I said, I'm really going to lean into this game. This is probably where I'm going to go overall. I know I talked about James Cook as my guy here, but I think I'm going to really lean into this Philadelphia offense. I think they can end up kind of blowing the brakes off this Packers team and kind of put them in the dirt for the end of the season. I hate to say it. I hate doing that to you, but it ends up, and like I said, the thing for me is I just don't think a lot of people are going to play this game. They're going to want to play all the other
agreed.
stuff, and I get it.
Yep.
But I just think this is a leverage spot that I just can't. You get these once in a blue moon. I just can't resist taking the spot, and I think it could end up hitting really big this weekend.
Yeah, and the one other thing we didn't mention is I think with the concussion, I think they're going to want to get the ball out of Jalen Hurts' hand fairly quick. So I could see a lot of slants and stuff like that, and quick hitters. Packers do not defend those very well at all, especially without Jair Alexander. So, I could see both Devonta Smith and AJ Brown getting there. I could see Goddard getting there. Packers don't defend tight ends well, so yeah, I think this Philly team's kind of a tough matchup for them, especially right now. Philly's playing. They put up 41 on Dallas with a backup court without Jalen Hurts, right? They're kind of hitting on all cylinders right now. So yeah, tough time to get them. Tough place. Like they played them in Brazil week 1. That's a lot different than playing a Philly crowd in Philly in the playoffs. Like that's a tough environment. I've seen a lot of people compare the Packers being the 7 seed going into Dallas last year to the 7 seed going into Philly. Like
Totally
this Philly
different.
team, yeah, this Philly team would be a 10-point favorite over that Dallas team. And just like the environments are completely different. Going into Philly in the playoffs is very different than playing in that giant Jerry Dome in Dallas with a terrible fan base that not a bad fan base. They just hate the owners so that they don't care about the teams. But just a
Right.
very different environment. So yeah, I do not see that comparison. So Gary checking in. Yeah, if you guys got any questions, any fantasy playoff questions, any DFS questions, any playoff best ball questions, hit us up in the chat. We will get to you. All right, let's move on. The 2 highest over-under games of the weekend are the Sunday night and the Monday night games. Let's start on the Sunday night game. That is Washington at Tampa. Tampa a 3-point home favorite in this one. The over-under is 50. That's the highest over-under of the slate. 26.5-point implied total for Tampa, 23.5 for Washington. Lot of juicy goodness in this one. Which ones do you want?
I think I just want all of it, but it seems like everybody else does too.
Yeah,
So
exactly.
I've talked about Baker Mayfield doubles the entire year. It ends up another spot for him. We get Mike Evans versus Marshawn Lattimore, and I get it. It feels like that's been more of a talking point than it probably should be. Lattimore
Yes,
hasn't really
I
played at
agree.
all this year, and
Yep.
everybody wants to bring it up, and it's a new team. It's just different. The one guy I'm really interested in, Jalen McMillan, who has absolutely been cooking the last, say, month and a half. Been
Yep.
a touchdown machine as well. He ends up in a really nice spot. I think everybody's going to play Bucky Irving. I get it. Ends up a nice spot. And then on the Washington side, it gets a little interesting because I think both these teams are actually live to win. I think a lot of people think that Commanders are probably going to lose, but like Buccaneers have had some really high highs and some low lows. Like they've had some letdown spots. So
They were trailing at halftime to the Saints in a game that they had to win last week. Yeah, it's
yeah. So it just I think a lot of people just think they're going to go in and go rip it apart. But I mean, Jane Daniels has been really good on the other side, and obviously both these teams end up uh, in nice spots. I'm a little worried about Terry McLaurin. I know a lot of people are excited him. I know the Bucks secondary's been bad. I believe Antoine Winfield is playing. I saw him practicing,
Yes.
and
Yep.
then like the matchup for Terry is not the greatest on paper, but I know that the secondary has been kind of goofy. And then, like I said, I really like Zacchaeus has been kind of stepping up to the wide receiver 2 role for them. And then Zach Ertz, I can't believe I've talked about him in 2025, but Zach Ertz is definitely viable on a slate like today. And I think he's definitely gonna have some ownership too, just because he has a really safe floor.
Yeah, and he's got some touchdown upside as well. I mean, he's been scoring for them. He's one of their premier weapons inside the 10, near the end zone. So, I he is a guy like we talked about how flat the tight end landscape is. If he can get 2 touchdowns, he's smashing. Like he's the tight end you have to have. I also think Cade Otton is interesting in that he's still kind of questionable, and I don't think that people are going to want to play him. So I think he's nice leverage against the field. If you want to play him, he might be someone. If you're checking in on Sunday and your weekend long DFS is trailing, you may want to kind of pivot to him as a kind of a low ownership swap. So I do like him. I love Bucky Irving this week. He's going to be in pretty much all my lineups. 7,000 on FanDuel, and then on DraftKings he is same price, which is kind of crazy. Washington is just terrible against the run, and we've seen Bucky just completely take over this backfield, right? Rashad White has basically been phased out. This is entirely Bucky Irving's backfield. So, assuming that Tampa can get up and get to a lead, and this game, and they want to kind of slow things down a little bit, I think he's an absolute smash play this week. Love Bucky Irving, like you said, McMillan. I like him a lot, and like I said, I do like Jaden Daniels this week because I think he's going to get a lot. I think he's going to have to run quite a bit. So I do like that rushing floor that he provides among the top end quarterbacks.
Yeah, we got some coach speak from Buccaneers head coach that Bucky Irving is just going to get kind of a bigger role. It's more solidified now. We don't have to worry as much about Rashad White. Like down the stretch, I
Right.
mean, Rashad White was fumbling. I believe he like cost him a game. Like just
The Dallas game, yeah.
yeah. And so it just seems like it's Bucky time. He's going to have a lot of ownership, and that's just something. I don't think it's going to be necessarily chalky, but he is definitely going to have some ownership. So if you get buried by him and don't have him, it's kind of hard to find anything else. On the other side, as far as running backs go, we got Brian Robinson and Austin Eckler. Austin Eckler's back from his concussion. Robinson has not been really good the last couple games. Like it's just been
He's
kind of
been really
goofy.
bad. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, that's me being polite then. And then, you get Eckler. I think Eckler's kind of interesting. I don't like the thing with Brian Robinson that you would probably be running him if they had a lead, and I just don't expect him to have a big lead against the
Yep.
Buccaneers. So it's like you get Eckler, get some dump off stuff. He ends up kind of interesting, probably in some large field stuff where you don't have to take this chance. But this game's going to have a lot of ownership, rightfully so. This is I think for me, probably the most exciting matchup of the weekend. I do think that there is a chance that the Buccaneers defense kind of smothers the rookie quarterback in his first playoff game, just kind of overmatches him schematically with Todd Bowles. So Todd Bowles is probably going to bring heavy blitz, like try to confuse him, and it gets to a point like where he kind of hits that wall, or you can think that he's just going to be on the run constantly, and that'll end
Yep.
up being the nice thing too. But we've kind of seen this stuff, and it's not anything against Jaden Daniels, but you get against one of these defensive coordinators that can do really well against rookie quarterbacks, kind of throw the house at them, and then play off the high leverage situation where these guys just kind of go to their instincts. Not saying that Daniels just automatically runs constantly, but kind of give or take there. So I'm going to play the Buccaneers stuff like I have every single week this year, and kind of go from there. But it will be pretty high owned. I think everybody's going to be playing it, especially Bucky. I think just about everybody on earth is going to be playing Bucky Irving, but it's a spot of a lifetime for him too. So, and it ends up cheaper than Barkley, Henry, those guys.
Yeah, I do agree with you on Eckler. I mean, what are you going to do? Just run Brian Robinson straight into Vita Vea all 20 times? Yeah, I
No,
don't think
thank you.
so. So,
No, thank
yeah,
you.
I'm interested in Eckler as the dump off guy. 5,400 on FanDuel, and I just had him up 4,800 on DK. So yeah, I think he's a nice pay down option because, like you said, it's a rookie quarterback on the road. Todd Bowles loves the blitz. They're going to bring pressure on him all day. So it's either Jaden Daniels is going to take off and run, or he's going to have to dump it off to Austin Eckler. So I like both those options, honestly, because I think they're going to have to do it quite a bit. So yeah, and that's why I like Bucky, because I think there is a chance. Like, we've seen Jaden Daniels, like the Philly game that they won that game. I think they had 5 turnovers in that game. So there's a chance that this game could just get, like I said, rookie quarterback on the road in the playoffs against an aggressive defense. This game could get out of hand early, and then it's all Bucky time. So maybe they would pivot to Sean Tucker. I doubt. I think it would still be heavy Bucky against a bad run defense. So I think he's a smash play this week. All right, one more game, the traditional Monday night 4-5 matchup. The Minnesota Vikings travel to Glendale, Arizona now to take on the Los Angeles Rams, who are displaced by the fires. Obviously, a terrible situation there. 48-point over-under in this game, tied with the Denver Buffalo for the second highest of the slate. Minnesota has gone from an underdog to a 2.5-point favorite in this one. Their implied total is 25.25. The Rams is 22.75. Again, more juicy goodness in this one. How are we going to go attack this game?
Kind of surprised that the line switched to Minnesota being the favorite. I think honestly they should have been the favorite from the start. I know people don't want to hear this, but for like last month, the Rams offense has not really been that good ever since that big Buffalo blow-up game. Scored 12 points against the 49ers, 19 against the Jets, and then 13 against the Cardinals. So for a team that's got Puka, Cooper Kupp, Kyron Williams, like you think like this offense would be humming, but it's kind of slowed down a little bit. I know Puka Nacua is he's in a great spot when you play Minnesota. Like you don't want to necessarily run on him. You just want to go through the, secondary. So Puka, when they played earlier this year, Puka had a big game. And that's probably, if they're going to have a chance to win, like that's the way they're going to go through it. But I think everybody's going to play Puka Nacua. And I'll have him in some lineups. I'm not going to be overweight on him. The one thing I do want to take advantage of is everybody being scared of Sam Darnold after his game last week. I think this ends up being an awesome bounce back spot. You get Jordan Addison, you get Justin Jefferson. It's going to be pricey. These guys have like super duper mega ceilings. I mean, Jordan Addison has had bigger games than Justin Jefferson this year. And, with the attention that JJ is going to get, I think Addison's in a great spot. Hutchison, we talked about this tight end pool. He ends up there too. Aaron Jones ends up being kind of cheap. Just kind of this weird. Let me pull up his price real quick if I can. But just Aaron Jones ends up in this. He's 6,000 on DraftKings, so right there with Brian Robinson, J.K. Dobbins. He's been getting pulled from games. Like he seems like he gets injured every game and then kind of fluctuates back and forth. That's a little goofy. I think Minnesota's going to win. I thought they were going to win before this, stuff happened where they moved to Arizona, and I just think it's a blow up spot for this Vikings offense. It's been really good all year outside of like 2 games, and now everybody's freaking out because they saw a glimpse of the old Sam Darnold. Like they'd get to the red zone and he screwed up. Did he do it a couple times? Yeah. Like I get it, but I don't know. I'm going to go back to this Minnesota offense, and I think this is a spot for them to kind of go scorched earth here.
Yeah, I think you hit on. I love the Darnold Jefferson Addison doubles. I like that quite a bit. I think Addison's at a price point where you can do that. I do like Puka a bit in this game as well. I think their offense is really kind of toned down just because like they haven't really had their defense has played better, but they haven't played anyone kind of the caliber of this Vikings team. And we've seen bad games from Darnold before, right? And then he's bounced back. He had the bad game against Jacksonville, and then I think was the next game. I'm trying to look up real. He bounced back. Yeah, this Tennessee game. Bounced back and played pretty well, and then played pretty well against the Bears again after that. So we've seen bad games from him, and then he's bounced back and gotten back to it. So I'm not super concerned with Darnold. I think at his price point, he's one of my favorite quarterbacks of the slate, of the full weekend slate. He's down at 6,500 on DK. He's $300 less than Baker. So if you need to save some, like you said, pricing is pretty tight. So if you need to save that $300, I'm okay going from Baker down to Darnold. the one thing I'm kind of interested in, and I don't want to play a ton of it, is that I think everyone is off Aaron Jones because of the Q tag, because of the injury. So I think he could be a nice contrarian play in that if this game does get, well, if it gets out of hand, then I think they're probably going to go to Cam Akers and rest Aaron Jones. But
Right.
this Rams team can be run on. If they do a lot of draw plays and stuff like that, because they rush four. So if you can get that defensive line, they don't blitz very much. So if you can get those defenders kind of rushing upfield, I think there's going to be some opportunities for big plays for Aaron Jones. So I think it's a very contrarian play because I think he's going to have very low ownership. So that's a nice little pivot if you want to kind of get different with your lineup.
Yeah, I do want to say one thing on the Rams side. I think if you're playing the Matt Stafford like doubles, you're obviously play Puka and you're just automatically going to play Cooper Kupp. Outside of the Buffalo game a month ago, he has been horrendous. 3.2, a 0, 3.9, 3.4 fantasy points.
Yeah.
But I don't think people realize that, and they just we're going to get a blow up spot. We get the Vikings secondary that you don't want to run on them, so you're going to attack. And could Puka do that? Yeah, but I mean he is over the hill now at his age. He's had multiple injuries. It seems like things have really slowed down for him, and it just I don't know. I think a lot of more people are going to play Cooper Kupp than they should, just because they have that mindset. Oh, it's Rams offense. We're just going to play the double because there's not really anybody else. So I'd play Puka and I'd probably play Kyron Williams just because of the volume. Now we got, not that Blake Corum was involved, but he broke his forearm and he's
Yep.
gone. So I mean, it's just like it would be anyways. It'd be the Kyron Williams show just on volume. I know it's not the best matchup for him, but it sets up well. Like I said before, I think Minnesota is going to take this game. I thought that before all the fire stuff, and even I think that would have some effect. I don't know if any of the Rams players, any of them are actually affected, but their routines out of whack. They had to get a jet. They had to go to Arizona. Like everything's been up in the air for them. It's on Monday night. Like it just, I don't think it really sets up well for the Rams, and I think a lot of people think this game's just going to kind of go back and forth, big shootout, kind of like the Buccaneers. And I just think this is a spot for the Vikings to kind of lay the hammer here and kind of take care of the Rams. Like I said, I've not been impressed with the Rams over the last month, even though I said that they probably win the NFC West. Like it just they've kind of been a slog, especially on offense. Like Matt Stafford's not hitting like he was last year. I know when Puka played Minnesota, that was the game he came back from injury. He went for like 106 yards on limited routes. They said he was going to be limited, and he just showed up for a 100-yard game against Minnesota.
Yeah, exactly.
So, we'll see. Tyler Higbee, I don't want to do that. Like I said, I think I like the Minnesota side a lot, and I'm probably going to be underweight compared to others on Puka Nacua because I think a lot of people are excited to play him this week. I know he's got a good matchup, but just my personal, I guess, choice there.
Yeah, I think it's dangerous to kind of put too much weight on that previous game in that it was a Thursday night game, so it was a short week for the Vikings on the road. And then, like you brought up a minute ago, we didn't know, like that was Puka Nacua's first game back, and that was the game they were talking about kind of blowing everything up. I think the Rams were like 1-5 at the time, or something like
Cooper
that.
Kupp.
Yeah, they were talking about trading Cooper Kupp. They're talking about trading Matt Stafford. Nobody knew. Like everyone thought that Puka was just going to be, they were going to get him some snaps and just kind of get him back in the offense. He ended up playing a full game, had a monster game. Kupp went like 5 for 50 and a touchdown, so he had a pretty good game playing off Puka. But I think it's a good matchup in that the Vikings are kind of bad against slot receivers, but like Kupp is 6,400 on DK. He's more expensive than Jordan Addison. I'd rather go down to McMillan. I'd rather play Shakir. I'd rather go way down to Bateman. He's a tough click for me. Especially like you said, like his floor has basically been 0 for the last month.
I think I'd be, this is going to sound terrible, and I'm sure this would get clipped and end up on fantasy receipts. I think I'd be more excited to play Quentin Johnston than Cooper Kupp with Josh Palmer out and the work that he's gotten. And that sounds like terrible.
I mean, if you consider their price point, I don't think it's controversial at all.
Yeah, just like the way that things have gone the last month. I mean, Cooper Kupp's getting you like 3 points. Could he get in the box? Obviously, sure. Like, I'm not trying to be hot takey there, but I just Rams offense hasn't been good for a month outside of that Buffalo blow up game, and it just seems like everybody is ignoring that. And I don't know. We'll see. Maybe it'll bury me, and this game just goes completely off. But I don't see it for the Rams, especially after the week they've had. So, um, I'm gonna play the Darnold stuff. I think Darnold's gonna get played just because he's a cheaper guy. But there's a lot of different ways to play it. Like you can add Aaron Jones with your, Justin Jefferson or Jordan Addison or even
Sure.
T.J. Hawkinson. So that's how I'm gonna play it. And one last time, like I said, I think a lot of people are going to play Puka. I get it. I'm probably going to be underweight on him compared to the field, but I think if a lot of people are playing Puka, they're probably just going to play Cooper Cup and play Matt Stafford with it so they can jam some other guys in there.
Yeah, I mean, just to give the Rams a little bit of love. I mean, if obviously the Vikings are very heavy blitz defense. If there's a quarterback that you want playing against the blitz, it's Matt Stafford. Like he's a veteran,
Yeah.
he's seen everything. You're not going to fool him. He's going to know where stuff is coming from, and like he's got a couple of guys in Cup and Puka that are very good, like check down guys, check down receivers that can get they can get open quickly, and so I think they'll be able to move the ball. I'm not worried about that. But like you said, I didn't the disruption this week. Um, the whole situation in LA is just terrible. So obviously they're gonna be worried about stuff going on at home, and they had to take a flight to bring their pets with them and stuff like that because some of their players have been displaced. Just an awful situation. It's really I'm sure it may be it's us against the world kind of thing, but just in general, it just seems like a really tough spot for them.
Yeah, I tend to agree. So that's I think that wraps up Super Wild Card Weekend. I think they took away the Super from
It's
us. I think it just
average wild card weekend now.
average wild card weekend now.
Yeah,
So, but I'm looking forward to it. I think we're gonna get some good games out of it. This ends up being a really exciting weekend of football before we get to the heavy hitter matchups, but should end up being good.
yeah. All right, before we get to flag plants, I'm going to put you on the spot.
All right.
Who is your Jake Ferguson Memorial Garbage Time Player of the Week? Who just is the guy you have to have this week because he gets 3 touchdowns in garbage time?
Does it have to be garbage time?
I just no, just
No.
a player
Man,
that no one expects to get there but gets there because of game script. Let's say that.
let's see. Man, that is I don't know if it's game script dependent, but like I kind of want to lean into Jalen McMillan getting 2 touchdowns, and he ends up being
Okay,
like the wide receiver that kind of gets there. Yeah, it's between honestly him and Quentin Johnston. I think Quentin Johnston can have like this blow up game and nobody plays him. So
sure.
that's like I'm gonna lean McMillan here. I think he's been really good. I don't think a lot of people are gonna play him. They're just gonna play Mike Evans. One real out of the box play I think is going to be Zacchaeus for the Commanders. That'd be
Sure.
another guy that I think
I
could
like that.
end up in the box like more of a dart throw than McMillan was. So we'll go Zacchaeus there. What about you?
I've got a couple. One we talked about is Marvin Mims, but I just don't like his price point. It's really
Yeah.
tough to click, but I could see him like that game just getting so out of hand and just him being kind of the default. He kind of falls into that kind of Ferguson role is that, you know, they're, they're trailing by, 30 points and he's the guy that they've got to just dump the ball off to. The other one is a guy I kind of like, and that's Jalen Warren in that, I think it is trailing game script for Pittsburgh, which I expect to happen. He's got a much more palatable price point at 5,200 on DK, where he could just get a bunch of dump offs, and if he falls in the end zone a couple times, he could just absolutely smash at his price point.
So I think both of those are good. I got one more,
Okay,
and it's ugly. Nelson
I
Aguilar
like it.
catching a touchdown. So
Ooh,
no safe flowers. You get one bomb against Pittsburgh's defense that has not been good. Having a
yep,
lot of communication issues. I think it ends up kind of setting up for him. I know people talk about
that's
Wallace
spicy. I
and
like it.
Tez Walker. No thanks.
Nah, come on.
I'll, I'll just play the hits. I'll play Nelson Aguilar.
I mean, yeah, I've seen the Tez Walker thing. It's like, you seriously think a guy who's gotten one catch all year is going to get run in the playoffs? I mean, you seriously? Yeah, if the game gets completely out of hand, but then why aren't they just handing the ball off to Justice Hill in that case? So, yeah, I'm not seeing that. I like the Aguilar call. It's 3,400. He's almost min price on DK. So, yeah, I could see that hitting. Like you say, just one long touchdown, and he basically pays off that price point.
So those are both good. And then we'll just One last time for the season here. What about flag plants? We'll kick you off with your first flag plant if you have one. If not,
Yep, absolutely. We've always got flag plants. I'm going to start with Bucky Irving, especially at his price point, 7,000 on DK, against that brutal Washington run defense. And like we said earlier, if the game gets out of hand with the rookie quarterback and Todd Bowles just kind of throwing the house at him and confusing him and them turning the ball over like 5 times like they did against Philly, I could see Tampa just kind of leaning onto Bucky Irving, just trying to close out that game. So great spot for Bucky Irving. He's at his price point. He's going to be chalk. He's going to be super chalk, especially in cash. But I do like him quite a bit this week.
Yeah. So that's a good one. My first one, I brought it up earlier. James Cook ends up in the box twice. 20.
Yep. That's
24 points today coming from him. I just think it's a spot where they can just kind of bludgeon Denver and let them know where they actually belong, which is not in the playoffs. So that's going to be my first flag plant here.
I like that call. I like that quite a bit. My second, this pains me. This pains me, but it's going to be Saquon Barkley. I don't see a world in which he doesn't get a couple touchdowns against Green Bay. Like, they have been absolutely, like, they've been pretty solid against the run, but they've gotten gashed against running backs in the passing game. We saw it against Detroit. We saw it with Barkley in week 1. Like, they've been better with Edger and Cooper in the lineup, but he can be as talented as he is and as great an athlete as he is. He can be really assignment unsound. So I could see them getting a wheel route to Barkley. And I just don't think there's a world, especially with Hurts coming off the concussion. I think they're going to lean on Barkley. And I think they're going to, I just don't see a world where he doesn't get a couple touchdowns in this game.
I'm going to lean on the other side of that, and I'm going to go AJ Brown. So
sure,
that's going to be my. I think that's where I'm going to go. I don't think he's going to have a lot of ownership. I think people are going to be scared to play, and I get it. Just the pass rate over expectation for Philly, they haven't needed to just because how well they've ran the ball. But I think this ends up being a big blow up spot for AJ Brown today. So, and nobody's going to play.
Like we said earlier, go back to week 1. Barkley, Hurts, and AJ Brown all got there. They all had big games against Green Bay in that kind of same spot. So yeah, I get like that's a flag plant on the same team that we could both get right.
There we go. So just before we go, I just want to, like I said, thank everybody who's tuned in this year. It's been a lot of fun. Hopefully we helped you win some money. So I just want to give a shout out to everybody that has joined, commented, doing all that good stuff. We really do appreciate you. Out of all the places in the world to check out, NFL content coming to us, we both really appreciate it.
Yeah, 100%. Thanks to everyone, all our regular listeners and viewers who have checked out all year. We appreciate you. It's been fun. Thank you to Jameson. Thank you for having me on. It's been a blast. Love doing it. Gonna miss it. It's hard to believe that, the season is over. The DFS season is big. Like, there'll be some single game stuff, but this is the last kind of real kind of semi-large slate of the year. So tough to see it go, but yeah, it's been a blast, and we appreciate everyone for checking it out. That said, that is it. Good luck with your average wildcard weekend DFS plays. Good luck with your playoff pools. Good luck with your playoff fantasy. We appreciate you. Thanks for checking out the show. Good luck in average wildcard weekend.
Thank you for watching the IDP Plus YouTube network. If you enjoyed this video, give it a thumbs up and don't forget to subscribe to our channel. Be sure to tap the bell icon to get notified whenever we upload new content.